Damon Cross hadn't been born into privilege. Every callus on his rough, weathered hands told a silent story. A history of crawling under cars in the freezing cold, of changing tires on the roadside, of adjusting spark plugs like he was caring for something alive. Now, at 45, he could stand in his penthouse office, high above the city skyline, wrapped in floor-to-ceiling glass and the hum of success, but the past had never left him. It lived quietly inside him, like a scar you no longer notice until it aches. A constant reminder that real success doesn't come from numbers on a screen. It comes from how people are treated. That morning, Damon held a tablet in his hand, his brow furrowed as he stared at a sales performance graph that made absolutely no sense. The Westlake branch's revenue had spiked dramatically, and yet foot traffic was down by nearly 60%. He didn't pretend to stay calm. "Liza," he said, his voice low and steady, carrying the weight of waves just before they break. He passed the device to Eliza Chin, his assistant of nearly 8 years, his most trusted second set of eyes. Eliza adjusted her glasses, her gaze narrowing as she scanned the numbers. "This only adds up if they are selling fewer vehicles, but at significantly higher margins." She pulled out her phone, her voice lowering. "This is complaint number 17 in just 2 weeks. As she scrolled through messages, her expression darkened. People were being turned away at the entrance. No appointment, no entry. Westlake had become by appointment only. Damon's stomach dropped. Since when? And who gave the order? He took the phone from Eliza and scanned through a message that stopped him cold. A father had driven his daughter, a college freshman, 40 minutes just to check out used sedans. Their hope? To find a decent first car, but they were turned away, told they weren't a good fit for the dealership's image. "A good fit," Damon echoed, his voice barely audible but razor sharp. Those words lodged in his chest like a shard of glass. Employees who had been with him long enough recognized that tone. It meant danger. It meant a storm was forming beneath the surface. Cross Motors wasn't built on stock tickers or luxury branding. It started with a dusty, forgotten dealership he turned around by sheer grit and one guiding belief: everyone deserves a chance to be treated with dignity, whether they walked in wearing a suit or steel-toed boots. "Eliza," he said quietly, "is there more?" She nodded and pulled up the company's social media accounts. The reviews were damning and repetitive. Turned away, ignored, judged. But what made Damon's blood run cold was Westlake's Instagram feed. Slick, curated images of models draped over luxury vehicles, filtered to perfection. One caption read, "The Cross Motors Westlake Experience, where premium clients meet premium service." "Premium clients," Damon repeated, his mouth suddenly dry, his jaw tightened not from anger, though it was there, but from something deeper. Shame. How had his vision, his mission, been reduced to this? When did serving the elite become more important than serving everyone? Eliza broke the silence. "Average sale price at Westlake has almost doubled. They're barely moving any economy models. It's almost all luxury now." Damon turned away and clenched his fists. "Give me Troy Benson." "I've tried 3 times this week," Eliza replied. "His assistant says he's always with clients." Damon didn't respond. The silence grew heavier. "Eliza, Marcus Washington tried to make a surprise visit, but somehow they always seem to know in advance," she added, a touch of worry creeping into her tone. Damon turned toward the window. The sun was casting long shadows over the city below, and his reflection in the glass didn't look like a CEO. It looked like a father discovering his child had strayed off course without him noticing. "Cancel all my meetings tomorrow," he said suddenly. "All of them, even the investor call?" "Especially that one." and find me something to wear that doesn't make me look like I just walked off the cover of Forbes." Eliza opened her mouth to ask, "What are you planning?" But the look in his eyes stopped her. She already knew. Damon didn't want power. He didn't need prestige. He wasn't looking for revenge. He wanted the truth. The next morning, a modest Honda Civic rolled quietly onto the pristinely paved lot of Cross Motors Westlake. The building gleamed in the morning sun, steel and glass arranged like a modern cathedral to consumerism, a monument to everything Damon had built and everything it had become. Maseratis, Range Rovers, high-end Mercedes, all displayed like trophies on sleek pedestals. But Damon wasn't dressed for a boardroom. Behind the wheel sat a man in a faded button-down shirt, worn-out jeans, and boots scuffed from years of real work. His hands bore the same old calluses, and his eyes, those were the eyes of someone walking back into their own kingdom, not as its ruler, but as a stranger. What struck Damon wasn't the lineup of luxury vehicles. It was what wasn't there. No Civics, no Corollas, no entry-level sedans. The very cars that once defined Cross Motors' promise. The dealership wasn't just excluding customers. It was erasing them. The entrance, once an open, welcoming space, had been transformed. A sleek reception desk stood like a checkpoint, backed by velvet ropes and potted plants that funneled guests like cattle. Everything screamed exclusivity. Behind the desk sat a young woman, eyes glued to her phone, nails perfectly manicured, makeup flawless. Her nameplate read Kendra Davis, Client Relations. Damon didn't recognize her, or the title. She looked like she belonged in a fashion editorial, not at a dealership. For nearly 30 seconds, she didn't look up. When she finally did, her smile was the kind taught in expensive seminars, polite, rehearsed, and utterly empty. "Welcome to Cross Motors Westlake," she said, giving him a quick up-and-down glance. Her eyes lingered on his worn shirt, his jeans, his boots. "Do you have an appointment?" Damon remained calm. "No. I was just driving by and thought I'd check out some sedans. I'm looking for a new car." The corners of Kendra's mouth twitched slightly. Her shoulders stiffened, and a flicker of annoyance passed through her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, though she clearly wasn't. "We've transitioned to an appointment-only model at this location." She gestured to a QR code on the desk. "You can scan that to schedule a visit for another time." Damon tilted his head. "That's strange. There's no mention of appointments on your website." "It's a very recent update," she replied smoothly. "We've made the change to enhance the customer experience." Damon nodded slowly. He didn't need to raise his voice, because the moment had already spoken for itself. "But I'm already here," Damon said, his voice calm but clear, every word deliberate. "Surely it wouldn't be too much trouble for someone to show me around. I'm especially interested in the new hybrid models." Kendra's plastic smile disappeared. She glanced over at the showroom where a group of salespeople stood idle, chatting and laughing casually, completely unoccupied. When she turned back to Damon, her expression had shifted, cold. "Control. We only serve customers with appointments," she said, her tone clipped and void of apology. "No exceptions." Her eyes dropped deliberately to Damon's clothes, faded jeans, worn work boots, a shirt that had seen better days. And then came the dagger. "We cater to premium clients. Clearly, you're not that kind of customer." The words didn't land like a slap. They cut like a scalpel. Clean, quiet. Damon stood frozen, not in shock, but in a moment of sharp, layered realization. A part of him wanted to laugh at the absurdity of the arrogance. Another part wanted to rage. But most of all, something in his chest twisted, not from offense, but from betrayal. because in that moment he was no longer the founder of Cross Motors, no longer the CEO who built an empire from grease-stained knuckles and sleepless nights. He was just a man, a middle-aged man dismissed in the very place he had bled to create. Through the glass behind Kendra, Daman took in the showroom floor. Gone were the family sedans. Gone were the cozy lounge areas designed to make first-time buyers feel at ease. In their place, imported leather couches and exclusive pods, glossy touchscreens displaying only top-tier luxury vehicles, and tucked in the corner, glinting under designer pendant lights, a champagne bar, one he had never approved. This wasn't Cross Motors, at least not the one he built. And who made that change in policy? He asked evenly. Management, Kendra replied without missing a beat, her eyes already drifting past Damon, toward the front entrance, where a couple had just stepped out of a Bentley. In a heartbeat, Kendra's entire demeanor shifted. Her posture straightened, her face lit up with an almost childlike glow. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington, right on time. Troy's been expecting you. And just like that, Damon became invisible, dismissed, disregarded. For he, the man who had built this brand brick by brick, was being treated like an intruder in his own home. A part of him wanted to rip off the mask right then and there, to watch the panic bloom across her face. But the investigator in him, the builder, the strategist, knew better. Truth isn't revealed by anger, it's revealed by patience. Look, Damon said, his voice softening, controlled. I understand your policies, but I drove quite a ways to get here. I'd appreciate just a few minutes with a manager. Maybe they can make an exception. Kendra sighed, long and theatrical, as if he were a paper cut on her perfectly manicured day. Fine, wait here, she said, tapping her intercom. Her tone turned syrupy with disdain. Troy, there's a walk-in demanding to see management. She emphasized the last two words like they were poison. A crackling voice came through. Troy, presumably, slow, indifferent, vaguely irritated. But after a pause, he agreed. As Damon waited, his eyes roamed the room, soaking in what had changed. The warm, open layout he had designed to welcome working-class families was gone, replaced by curated exclusivity. Every corner of this dealership now whispered, "You don't belong here." And in the back, that glistening champagne bar stared back at him like a betrayal poured in crystal glass. Then came Troy Benson. Tall, confident, tailored, within an inch of his life. He stepped out of his glass-walled office, laughing loudly with a younger man dressed like an Instagram influencer. Damon recognized Troy immediately. He'd read his name in reports, seen his face in newsletters. But now, that face carried something else entirely. Superiority. Apologies, Troy said, barely glancing at Daman. I'm handling the Reynolds account right now, but she said you were insistent. I just want to take a look at some vehicles, Damon said simply. Your website says you're open from 9 to 7. Troy's jaw tightened slightly, but he smiled, mechanical and detached. The website's being updated. Westlake now serves a very specific clientele. We find it creates a better experience for everyone. Daman tilted his head. What exactly do you mean by specific? Troy's polished demeanor cracked. His eyes flicked to Damon's jeans, his boots, then, through the glass, to the modest Honda Civic parked outside. And then, the smirk. Look, man, Troy said, dropping the customer service act. His tone now reeked of faux camaraderie. Don't waste our time. This isn't a car museum. He nodded toward the Civic. Out there. That's more your speed. We deal with serious buyers here. The insult wasn't veiled. It wasn't coded. It was as naked as it was condescending. Even Kendra blinked in discomfort. A young salesman nearby tried and failed to suppress a laugh. And Damon noticed, off in the distance, a female employee discreetly raising her phone and recording. "I am a serious buyer," Damon said, voice level, unwavering. Troy let out a full-bodied laugh. "Sure you are. There's a used car lot 5 minutes east. Might be more in your budget range. Kendra can give you directions," he added curtly, already turning away, like he was brushing lint off his jacket. And just like that, Damon became a performance piece for the room. Some customers looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with amusement, like they were on the right side of the velvet rope, enjoying the show. Was this what his company had become? A playground for arrogance, a shrine to superficiality disguised as strategy? Damon's voice dropped low, firm, almost gentle, but with the weight of something ancient and immovable. "Is this how you treat all potential customers?" Troy stopped. The mask was gone. "We're done here," he snapped. "You can walk out, or I'll have security show you the way." Security. The word stung. Damon had approved 2 guards for this location, to keep people safe, not to gatekeep dignity. But before he could respond, Troy had already turned, barking across the showroom. "Mr. Reynolds, let's get back to customizing that leather interior." From behind a sleek, matte black SUV, a young man with gelled hair and designer shades waved casually. Damon squinted. There was something familiar about him, but he couldn't quite place it. "Thank you for your interest in Cross Motors," Kendra added with a smirk, sliding a business card across the counter. It was black, embossed in silver. "Westlake Elite Program, by invitation only." Damon took it without a word, nodded once, turned, and walked toward the exit. The glass doors whispered shut behind him. And then, laughter. Low. Cruel. Smeared with sarcasm. Damon didn't need to turn around to know whose voice carried loudest. "Some people," Troy said, "just don't know their place." It didn't hurt Damon's ego. He'd long outgrown the need for validation. But it burned something deeper. His belief. The belief that everyone deserved kindness, that no customer was beneath dignity, that no business was worth building if it wasn't built on respect. In the parking lot, Damon gripped the steering wheel of his Civic. Knuckles white, jaw tight. Through the windshield, he watched as Troy strutted beside Reynolds, pointing at vehicle features like a man selling dreams from a stage. He kept glancing toward the entrance, where Damon had stood just moments ago. His eyes were full of smug pride. Damon reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. "Mark," he said into the receiver, voice steady but charged. "It's me. What have our people found?" There was a pause on the other end, a report. Damon's eyes narrowed. "I see. And Reynolds? Interesting. Keep your team in place. Tell them to stay sharp. Things are about to get complicated." He ended the call, then pulled out a second phone, his executive device. He scrolled until he landed on the name, Patricia Chin, legal. "Patricia, it's Damon Cross. Clear your schedule. I need every document you have on termination procedures, especially for cause." He wasn't done. He tapped another contact. "Marcus Washington, meet me at my private office, 1 hour, and bring a photographer." When Damon Cross drove away from the Westlake dealership, the place he had once called the beating heart of his company, the sting of humiliation still clung to him. But now, that sting had crystallized into something sharper, something colder. Resolve. Troy Benson had no idea what he'd just ignited, but he was about to find out. And it would hit him. Soon. Just 20 minutes later, Damon pulled into an unmarked office building nestled discreetly 3 miles from the dealership. No signage, no logos, just glass, concrete, and shadows. This wasn't Cross Motors headquarters. It was one of the company's off-the-grid satellite sites set up years ago by Mark Thompson, a former FBI agent and the head of internal security. A place built for quiet investigations and corporate reckoning. "How'd the shopping trip go?" Mark asked, voice calm but eyes alert. "Enlightening," Damon replied. His tone wasn't angry. It was quieter than that, sharper, like the chill just before a blizzard. Mark led him through a secured corridor into a surveillance hub. Multiple screens glowed, casting soft blue light over the walls. A petite woman with cropped hair stood as they entered, posture straight, expression focused. "Boss," Mark said, gesturing. "This is Jenny Ramos, IT analyst. She's been embedded at Westlake for the last 3 weeks." Damon extended a hand. "What did you find?" Jenny wasted no time. With a flick of her wrist, she pulled up layers of data on the main monitor. "It's worse than we thought," she said, voice tight. "The by-appointment-only policy, completely unauthorized. I accessed Troy's internal emails. He implemented it on his own 4 months ago. No record, no reporting to HQ." She clicked again. The screen shifted. "And that's just the beginning." The CRM, Customer Management System, had been quietly modified. Data fields had been altered, filters added. It created a hidden tier system, Jenny explained. Platinum clients get immediate service. Gold clients can book appointments standard. She hesitated. "Get turned away," Damon finished, voice like steel. "Exactly. But here's the disturbing part. The categorization has nothing to do with purchase history or loyalty metrics. It's based on visual profiling, address, vehicle type, clothing, even physical appearance." "And who's tagging the customers?" Damon asked. "Kendra Davis," Jenny answered. "Hired 6 months ago. Her last job was as a concierge at a 5-star hotel, no prior dealership experience." Mark stepped in. "We've also been tracking appointment logs. Last month alone, 147 walk-ins were denied service. Meanwhile, the branch reported record-breaking profits, despite a drop in actual vehicle sales." "How is that even possible?" Damon asked, narrowing his eyes. Jenny's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Price manipulation. High-end clients are being overcharged, sometimes 10 to 20% above MSRP. Troy's calling it market adjustment, but it's basically extorting the rich and shutting out the rest." Dark stood and Damon nodded slowly. "Still doesn't explain the revenue spike." Mark glanced at Jenny and gave a small nod. "That's where our second undercover agent comes in." The side door opened. A young man in his late 20s stepped in, clean cut, slightly bookish, but his eyes were sharp. "Mr. Cross," Mark said. "Meet David Chin from our corporate accounting team. He's been posing as Westlake's finance manager for the last month." David gave a respectful nod. "And I found what we feared most, dual books." He tapped a key, and the screen lit up with 2 parallel financial systems, one reported to headquarters, the other hidden. Kendra flagged and redirected customers she labeled as undesirable. Those clients were then referred to competitor dealerships, specific ones, where Troy receives private kickbacks. $500 per head. Damon felt heat rise to his temples. His jaw clenched. They weren't just rejecting customers. They were selling them. "And Reynolds?" Damon asked, already suspecting the answer. Mark's lips curled in disgust. "Not a real buyer. He's a C-list actor Troy hired to play an influencer. Photos, fake posts, the works." Jenny added, "They never sold him a car, just parked the same luxury SUV in different spots for photo ops, the illusion of exclusivity." Damon stood silently. He wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too small, too hot. This was something colder, deeper. A betrayal in the bones. "And you've documented everything?" he asked quietly. "Every email, every text, every surveillance clip," Jenny confirmed. "I also installed a real-time backup system. They can't erase a single thing without us knowing." Damon exhaled slowly. "You've all done good work," he said, then checked his watch. "Patricia and Marcus should already be at the office. Send everything to Patricia, encrypted, full files." He turned toward a sleek wardrobe in the back of the room. "And now," he added, voice calm, clipped, and dangerous, "I need to change." It wasn't the voice of a man weighing his next move. It was the voice of a commander returning to the battlefield. As he buttoned his tailored shirt and adjusted his cufflinks, Damon turned toward his team. "I need all of you at Westlake, 1 hour from now." David raised an eyebrow. "Are we shutting them down?" "No." Damon paused at the doorway, fire rising behind his calm. "We're going shopping, for real this time." He turned to Mark. "And call the City Business Journal. That reporter who did the investigative piece on corporate ethics last month. What was her name?" "Sarah Jimenez," Mark said, his eyes gleaming. "Tell her that if she wants an exclusive on how the CEO of Cross Motors deals with corruption within his own ranks, to meet us at Westlake, 2 p.m. Bring a photographer." As Damon disappeared into the hallway, Jenny glanced at Mark, worry flashing across her face. "I've never seen him like this." Mark smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I have, once. A rival tried to sabotage a new dealership launch by spreading rumors about defective vehicles." Mark's voice dropped. 6 months later, they had to sell the company. David muttered under his breath, "Almost feel bad for Troy." Mark just shook his head. "Some lessons have to be paid for in full." 1:55 p.m. Westlake Cross Motors. A sleek black Escalade, gleaming under the midday sun, pulled up to the front entrance. Emblazoned on the side, the Cross Motors Executive Division logo. Behind it, 3 identical vehicles followed in perfect formation. A motorcade, silent and precise. Inside the dealership, heads turned. Sales reps froze. Customers exchanged confused glances. A ripple moved through the room. Behind the reception desk, Kendra was still tapping away on her tablet, unfazed. The first set of doors opened. She didn't look up. But when the inner doors parted, when the hush of curiosity swelled into whispers, she finally raised her eyes and dropped the tablet. Standing before her was no longer the man in faded denim and scuffed boots. It was Damon Cross, dressed in a flawlessly tailored charcoal suit, Italian leather shoes, a deep blue tie the exact hue of the Cross Motors logo, and on his wrist, a silver timepiece that cost more than Kendra's annual salary. But it wasn't the wardrobe that took her breath away. It was his face. Still, composed, and utterly merciless. "Miss Davis," Damon said, voice gentle but glacial. "I believe this time I have an appointment." Behind him stood a wall of authority. Mark Thompson, security badge clearly visible. Patricia Chin, legal director, holding a leather-bound case. Marcus Washington, regional VP. And a woman with a press badge, camera ready, Sarah Jimenez. "Mr. Cross," Kendra stammered, standing too fast. We didn't know you were." "It was the point," Damon replied, voice even but absolute. "Don't let me interrupt your work. Where's Mr. Benson?" "Don't." And as if summoned by fate, Troy Benson emerged, still laughing, shoulder to shoulder with Jason Miller, the actor playing his influencer fantasy. The laughter stopped. Troy's expression turned to stone. His smile died, his color drained. "Mr. Cross," he managed, "what an unexpected honor." unexpected. Damon removed his sunglasses. His eyes were diamond hard. I thought I'd stop by. No appointment necessary, I hope. Troy stood frozen, mouth ajar like a fish gasping for air. Beside him, Jason Miller slowly backed toward the door. "Not so fast, Mr. Reynolds," Mark said flatly, stepping into his path. The entire showroom stilled. Sales reps stopped mid-step, clustered among six-figure cars. Customers paused mid-conversation, eyes scanning the tension like smoke before fire. Even the barista stopped pouring espresso, hands suspended in the air like a frozen frame. "We should take this into the office," Troy offered, a sheen of sweat now glistening across his brow. "No," Damon replied, turning toward the center of the room. "Because what I'm about to say concerns everyone here." He took a breath, his voice rising not in anger, but in conviction. "My name is Damon Cross. I'm the founder and CEO of Cross Motors. This morning I visited this dealership as an ordinary customer, just looking to test drive a few cars." A wave of whispers swept across the showroom like dry grass catching fire. "I was turned away by Ms. Davis, who told me this location is appointment only and that I was, quote, clearly not the type of customer we serve. When I asked to speak to a manager, Mr. Benson told me I was wasting their time and should leave." Troy stepped forward, voice shaking. "Sir, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," Damon cut in, sharp but calm. "Just as I'm sure you can explain the unauthorized redesign of the showroom, the champagne bar that never received corporate approval, the so-called elite program that doesn't exist in any official company materials." Patricia stepped forward, unfolding a leather case and producing a thick folder. "Or perhaps," she said coolly, "you'd rather explain the dual accounting system, the kickback contracts with competitor dealerships, or the actor you hired to pose as a Gasps erupted across the showroom. Jason Miller flinched visibly, retreating a step, only for Mark to block his path again. "Lies," Troy shouted, his voice cracking. "Who told you these things?" "Your own records," Damon replied. "Your emails, your text messages, your security footage." A voice rang out from the back. A young salesman with glasses stepped forward. "Mr. Cross, I'm Robert Hernandez. I tried to report this for months, but Mr. Benson threatened to end my career." A woman joined him. "I'm Lisa Chin. I was reprimanded last week for helping a walk-in customer without an appointment." Damon nodded. "Noted." He turned back to the crowd, voice steady but heavy. "But before we go any further, I want everyone to understand exactly what's happened here." He gestured towards Sarah Jimenez, now typing rapidly with a recorder running at her side. "The story will be front-page news in the City Business Journal tomorrow about how Cross Motors discovered and dismantled a corruption ring within its own ranks." Troy's face had gone pale. "You can't do this. I made this branch the most profitable in the company." "At what cost?" Damon replied. "By betraying every value we stand for, by rejecting honest customers, creating false policies, fostering a culture of exclusion." He turned toward the customers and staff who stood silently watching, hanging on every word. Cross Motors was built on a simple belief that great cars and honest service should be available to everyone, not just to people wearing designer suits or pulling up in Bentleys. The soft click of phone cameras echoed around the room. One customer began recording openly. "Troy Benson and Kendra Davis, you're both terminated, effective immediately." Two security guards entered from the side, moving in synchronized silence. "You can't fire me," Troy shouted. "I doubled revenue." Marcus Washington stepped forward, voice firm. "After correcting for manipulated reports and customer complaints, you cost this dealership millions in future losses and reputation damage." Kendra began crying, mascara streaking like a storm across her cheeks. Damon turned to Jason Miller. As for you, Mr. Reynolds, your contract as an actor ends here. Though, I'll admit, your portrayal of a pretentious buyer was quite convincing." He stepped beyond the red velvet rope into the center of the very showroom that had rejected him that morning. And now he stood not as a stranger, but as the man who had built it. A middle-aged woman, Honda Civic, looking for a reasonably priced sedan. Usual fee applies. The words flashed onto the main screen behind him, copied from an internal message. Chilling, clinical, a slap to the dignity of every witness present. "That was my mother," a young salesman said hoarsely, voice breaking. "She came to visit me last month. They told her I wasn't here. Later I found out she was turned away at the door." Every eye turned to Kendra. Her posture shrank beneath the collective silence, a silence more damning than any words. The arrogance was gone. So was the icy charm. All that remained was a woman crushed under the weight of her own choices. "We've documented 17 similar arrangements," Damon continued, his words crisp, like a hammer striking steel. "Referral fees ranging from $300, 0 cents, to $700, 0 cents, per rejected customer, each one sent to competing dealerships." He turned to Troy, not with fury, but with finality. "Selling our own customers to competitors? That's not just unethical. It's potentially criminal." Patricia nodded grimly. "Our legal department is reviewing all applicable charges." Troy, once the embodiment of swagger and smooth confidence, now looked like a ghost. He stumbled forward. "Please, Mr. Cross, it was just business strategy, finding the right demographic, market segmentation." "Then let's talk about your elite program," Damon interrupted, swiping to the next screen. "A hidden pricing structure. One showing inflated prices for supposed premium customers who were told they were getting exclusive discounts." He turned to a well-dressed couple nearby. "Sir, ma'am, when you bought your vehicle last month, were you told you were receiving an elite discount?" The man nodded, still processing. "Yes. Mr. Benson said we qualified for 15% off MSRP under the Premium Client Program." "In reality," Dahlman said gently, "you pay 12% above MSRP. We've uncovered 63 similar cases in just the past quarter." The couple's faces flushed, not with shame, but with righteous anger. They turned toward Troy, their eyes ablaze. "You told us we were getting a deal," the woman said, voice trembling. "And that's not all," Damon continued. He nodded to David Chin, who stepped forward with a tablet. "David Chin, Corporate Finance," he introduced. "I've been embedded at this branch for the past month." He pulled up another set of reports. Roughly 30% of revenue from these inflated transactions was not reported to headquarters. It was diverted into a shadow accounting system. Troy's composure cracked completely. No, I can explain." "And then," Damon said, his voice tightening like a closing door. "There," he snapped his fingers. All the showroom screens came alive. Security footage. Clip 1. Troy and Kendra laughing as a middle-aged couple is turned away. Troy's voice crystal clear. "Did you see his shoes? Probably looking for a payment plan he can't even afford." Clip 2. Troy addressing staff. "If they don't look the part, they don't get past Kendra. No time for tire kickers and credit risks." Clip 3. Troy coaching Jason Miller. "Just act. Entitled. Demand attention. Real clients will think this place is for the elite." The showroom was silent. Some customers were already filming with their phones. "Turn it off," Troy whispered. "Please." Damon gave a quiet nod. The screens faded to black. "I trusted you," he said, voice low but unwavering, "to run this dealership with integrity. Instead, you created a culture of exclusion and deceit. You profiled our customers. You misled the ones who made it inside. You betrayed your team, your clients, and this company." He looked toward security. "Please escort Mr. Benson and Ms. Davis out. Their access to all systems has already been revoked." Troy made one final plea. "You need me? The clients I brought in, the connections." "What I need," Damon said firmly, "are employees who understand that every single person who walks through these doors deserves respect and honest service." As Troy and Kendra were led away, their humiliation now public, the tide of power turned. Customers who had once been flattered by their attention now averted their gaze. Colleagues they had dismissed now looked on, some with quiet satisfaction. Jason Miller tried to slip away in the chaos. "Calm, Morthing," Mark said, stepping in front of him and handing him a document. "This is an invoice for reimbursement of all funds received under false representation. Our legal department will be in touch." Jason took the paper, his hands shaking, his confidence gone. Sarah Jimenez approached Damon, her voice calm but eager. "Mr. Cross, would you like to make an official statement about what happens next at this branch?" Damon scanned the room. The murmuring crowd, the stunned employees, and the empty space where Troy and Kendra had stood. Then he turned to her. "Yes," he said, "we rebuild, starting today." The next morning, Cross Motors Westlake reopened its doors. Gone were the red velvet ropes. Gone was the cold, dismissive receptionist desk. The espresso bar still stood, but now it served free coffee to everyone. And hanging proudly at the front entrance, a bold new sign read, "Everyone welcome, no appointment necessary." Damon arrived early. He didn't want to hear about the changes secondhand. He wanted to see them with his own eyes. More than that, he wanted to feel the energy shift, to know the heart of the dealership was beating again. Inside, the layout had returned to the original design, cars arranged from affordable to luxury in a seamless flow. But what mattered most wasn't the cars. It was the atmosphere. You could feel it in the air, warm, human, real. "Mr. Cross?" Robert Hernandez's voice broke the calm. He looked stunned to see Damon. "I didn't expect you back so soon," Robert added. "This branch needs a hands-on recovery," Damon said with a smile, "and I wanted to speak with you directly." They stepped into what used to be Troy's office. The tacky art and oversized desk were gone. In their place, clean lines, open space, and fresh light. Marcus Washington and Patricia Chin were already waiting. "Robert," Damon began, "you had the courage to speak up against unethical practices, even knowing it might cost you your job. That's character." Robert looked down, modest. "I just couldn't stand watching people be turned away. My parents came to this country with nothing. If someone had judged them by how they looked and not who they were," noted slowly, "we need people like you, Robert, which is why," he glanced at Marcus, "we want to promote you to Director of Customer Experience for this branch." Robert's jaw dropped. "I'm just a sales associate. I don't have management experience." "But you have something far more important," Damon said. "Values. The rest will train you." A soft knock on the door. It was Lisa Chin, the young woman who'd been reprimanded for helping a walk-in customer. "You asked to see me?" she asked, eyes uncertain. "Yes," Damon said, standing. "We're restructuring this branch's leadership. Would you be willing to take on the role of sales manager?" Lisa blinked, stunned. "Me? But I—" "No but," Patricia cut in, warm but firm. "Your file shows the highest customer satisfaction score in the region, and you never compromised your ethics, even when you were under pressure." Just then, Damon's phone vibrated. A message from Eliza. "City Business Journal story is live, it's blowing up." He clicked the link. The headline filled the screen. Undercover CEO exposes corruption in luxury car dealership, a masterclass in corporate accountability. The article was exhaustive, fact-checked, and fair, but it focused most on how Cross Motors responded, with transparency, speed, and integrity. Social media was on fire. Wish more CEOs did this. I'm buying my next car from Cross Motors. Honesty is priceless. Visiting this weekend. More than 60 customers who'd once been turned away had written in, sharing their stories, expressing gratitude, pledging loyalty. At 2:00 p.m., Dahman gathered the entire Westlake staff. Yesterday, he said, we confronted a painful truth, but today is a beginning. He introduced the new Customer Respect Protocol, a company-wide side initiative to ensure every person is treated with equal dignity, regardless of status, style, or spending power. New training would focus on inclusion, empathy, and whole-person service. Feedback kiosks would be installed, with reports routed directly to corporate. As he spoke, the showroom doors opened. An elderly couple walked in, hand in hand. The man wore overalls and worn work boots, not unlike the ones Dahman himself had worn when he went undercover. Robert stepped forward, smiling. "Welcome to Cross Motors," he said warmly. "How can I help you today?" They were looking for a graduation gift for their granddaughter. Robert didn't blink. He offered them every option with kindness, no assumptions, no judgment. From across the floor, Dahman watched, quietly moved. This was the dream, not exclusivity, not prestige, but respect. Not curation, but service. By day's end, the showroom was buzzing, busier than it had been in 3 months. Sales exceeded projections, but more importantly, the energy was real. No pretense, no smoke and mirrors, just honest people helping honest customers. Before leaving, Dahman stopped by Robert's new office. "How's it feel?" he asked. "Overwhelming," Robert admitted. "But, right. Can I ask you something, though?" "Sure." "Why didn't you bring in a seasoned manager from another branch, someone with credentials?" Dahman smiled. "Because you understand the most important thing. We're not in the business of selling cars. We're in the business of serving people." He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "The couple you helped earlier, the man in overalls," Dahman said. Robert nodded. "Owns 3 construction companies, and he's buying his 5th vehicle from us. Troy turned him away last month." Robert's eyes widened. "I had no idea." "Exactly," Dahman said, "and that's the point. You didn't know, but you still treated him with respect." He paused, then added quietly, "Remember this, Robert. The next time someone walks into this showroom, treat them like they own the place." He gave a half smile. "Because for all you know, they just might." As Dahman stepped out into the golden light of the late afternoon, he saw something he hadn't seen the morning before. A real smile. Customers being welcomed with open hearts. Employees standing tall with pride. And a place once lost, now found again. Sometimes, you have to let everything fall apart, so you can rebuild it, exactly the way it was always meant to be.